The term "we are back" gets thrown around a lot these days, but we are most certainly back, as I fuck up my intro that I worked on before. But this wouldn't be an ArseBros if I didn't fuck it all up anyway, Toby. But we have been gone for about 3 games, about 3 weeks. Life, things, work, businesses, family, holidays, shit happens. And because we have so much fucking content that we bring to you guys now, with Manny doing Wednesday Extremes, with Darren on board now doing Thursday Night Lives, with Scunny Mike doing Fridays, which he didn't do because he also had a family thing. But with all of these things going on right now, it's just been difficult for us to bring you as much content as what we usually would. But we are most certainly now back. And Toby, it's a lovely time to come back when you're winning football games and the team's charging forward. And we do... for those of you who are new to listening to us, we do positive points, so positive 3 points, positive 2 points, positive 1 point for the 3 best players. For every Premier League game, we do -1, -2, and -3. And Toby, it has been getting harder and harder to actually do negative points, and I think that's an outcome of the team really overall playing well. Before we kick off into the Man Poo game, Toby, overarching feelings. Haven't spoken to you in 3 weeks. What's going on?
The Man U game specifically, I walked away pretty heartened with the performance. I think we kind of got away with a big former rival. I was more nervous watching the game than I have been for quite a while because I felt the rivalry was back, with them being towards the pointy end of the table and us with a resurgence. I think the last few weeks have been good, obviously. And I also, without tooting our own horn, I think a couple of times we've been correct with our sort of 360 view of things, not to shit the bed and knee jerk. The one I remember, I think it was Everton away a number of weeks back, and there were, it was either a draw or a loss, but we showed some really good starts of a recovery. And then, the other example was the Southampton game and not shitting the bed in the FA Cup and not shitting the bed and knee jerking with that. Although you did a little bit with one of your posts about Arteta and the lack of squad management. So I just think it's been a good run. It's been a positive run. It's been very enjoyable. And, I think seeing these kids come through, there's something really heartening and exciting about that, more so than if you get taken over by an ugly arc or a nation state, in my opinion.
No doubt, Toby. Look, I did put up some stuff about Arteta. I've had an interesting time on Twitter over these last couple of weeks, actually, because I've been getting mauled up a bit on Twitter, actually, for some of the things I've been putting on. The fan base is a bit funny at the moment. It's not that the fan base has ever not been very, like, as Scunny would say, like 50-50 or anything like that. But I almost feel like there's been a bit of an expanse left over from, someone like Ozil leaving the club. And so people have had to, like, almost direct their anger towards other areas. And it seems to be happening on Twitter quite a lot amongst fans. Like, someone puts up an opinion saying this guy's played his ass off, and someone puts up an opinion saying he hasn't. And it's like, fuck you, you're wrong. You can't call players garbage. You can't do this. You can't do that. And the fan base is still, like, really riled up at the moment. At least I'm finding that it's really fucking riled up at the moment. So it's just been an interesting time. And I find it funny that everyone is getting quite riled up during a time when we're playing quite well. And I think that also comes from, Toby, the fact that for the vast majority we're playing well, they don't want to look at pieces of the puzzle that aren't doing well. And I think on ArseBros, we do have a habit by nature, because the way we do our positive players and our negative players, that we do look towards players who aren't necessarily playing well, even in a winning team. And I guess this is kind of where I wanted to kick this off, Toby. So this is a post-game review, and we are talking about Man Poo. Why Not Sentiment in the room joining us. Hello, Why Not Sentiment. He's disappointed with the result against Man U. Why not? I wasn't disappointed. I think we had 3 key players out.
4 even.
Yeah, I thought any time when you're in a club that's in a rebuild, like we've been in a rebuild, and when you've come from 15th, to take a 0-0 draw, to have hit the bar, to have had Smith Rowe smash one of the keeper, to have had Pepe miss the bottom corner by a bee's dick. I think that those are the margins that you have to accept in football. It was a very to and fro game. I never thought they were super, super on top of us. Like, I never thought they were coming for us. I wasn't on the edge of my seat thinking, oh, Jesus, man, you were going to get us. And we defended really, really staunchly. So I was quite happy with the draw anyway. But Toby, there's a couple of things I wanted to start with and I wanted to talk to you about. And it's because we haven't spoken for a while. There's some interesting stuff. But the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was the return of the press. So we've seen it particularly in the last two games, the Southampton game and the Man U game. We've had a bit of an interesting press. We've been pressing really heavily through the front three. Jacques has been triggering the press through the midfield for us. And then the rest has almost been quite sitting off. And it's been really interesting to see us get on the front foot and start to press the ball because we were so devoid of that early in the season. Just wanted to know if you'd noticed it and what you thought the trigger points for that were, if it was just confidence from a team moving forward, or if there's something bigger that's been worked on by the coaching staff.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say, actually, because as we know, pressing isn't about everyone just flying forward. It's when to go and when to hold. Who goes and who sticks and so forth. And like you said, it's kind of a mixture between a press from the front and one of the midfield pivot, and then the defense can hold back as well and sit fairly deep. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I was going to say it's a confidence and an enjoyability factor. I think any team that's playing with a bit more gusto and confidence are going to press better. Someone like Lacazette looks like he's found a whole new lease of life and energy and enjoyment to his game, and a couple of goals. And he always seemed to work hard, but now like his sprint speed has seemed to improve, and he's really hustling and bustling and being quite of a nuisance. So I think that's been a positive factor, and certainly winning that number 9 spot back, because there's no one else at the moment you could see that could do that. I think Pepe was hugely surprising. All of a sudden, he went from looking like a whippet to someone who looked like, power, pace, pressing, creativity, work rate, all of the above that we haven't seen since the FA Cup final. So whether, Arteta has tickled his balls in the right way or chinned him in the right way is probably a better analogy or example of that. You've got someone like Martinelli on the left who's naturally a presser because they're a bulldog. Dare I say it, no Aubameyang might even be helpful to an extent. With that, and an interesting point that you made with Xhaka actually leading some of the press, and him and Partey seem to be they're dividing their roles quite well. They know when to go and who to stay back, and they look like a very good combination. So, well,
if you're gonna run through the entire team, Toby, in the podcast in the first 8 minutes before we can get to any of the questions. Anyway, since you've mentioned half of the people that we're going to talk about tonight, anyway, in one small ramble, I thought I'd start with Xhaka, Toby, and I wrote a little comment down saying even the staunchest Xhaka disliker, of which, I have been a well-known, well-documented Xhaka disliker. I've said that he's a restricted player. I've said that he needs certain pieces of the puzzle put around him to not be exposed for the flaws that he had. And I've questioned his personality, his leadership, his mentality. I've questioned all of these things about Granit Xhaka. Toby, in the last 6 weeks of football, there's an argument to say that Granit Xhaka has been in the top 3 or 4. If you take away a couple of the kids and a couple of the shiny new things, you actually dig into the meta of the football team. I think there's a big argument to be made for the fact that Granit Xhaka's return to form, return to giving a fuck, return to bleeding for the badge, whatever you want to fucking call it, that this has actually been one of the most important structural pieces to allow the bits in front of him to go and do their job. Man of the match for a lot of people yesterday, close to man of the match For me, I think I've only had an issue with him in one game in the last 4 or 5 weeks, Toby. So to all the people who do have their Xhaka agendas, and we're definitely Xhaka agendaists, or I definitely am, I would be very happy if he fucked off and we got money for him. Do you want to take us through just what your thoughts are on Xhaka, what it means for him for the future, if it's just adding zeros to a sale price, or if there is a genuine opportunity for Xhaka here to mend bridges once thought burnt to the ground?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, I'm a sucker for effort and aggression and all of that. I loved bloody Ray Parler back in the day. He was one of my favorite players. So I'm easily fooled and easily manipulated that way. But in saying that, he is very much a player that the players around him either improve or detract from his performance. And one thing we do know about him, he's got a big ego on him in terms of his leadership role, and he tries to show that on the pitch. And I think that's why, someone, even as an example like Mustafi, they try and put out danger or put out fires because they think it's their role to do that. And unfortunately, when you don't have the physical attributes, the players around you, the ability to stay on your feet, the tackling skills, errors can be made. And we're not excusing some of those, like the Brighton one that effectively ended our top 4 run and so forth. But coming back to everything, he's a big guy. He's aggressive. He's I was going to say decent stand-up defender, although, his technique can be flawed at times when people are running by him. But he improved his ball recycling, his quickness of thought. He's always had a good passing and long passing game, in particular when he gets to navigate the left-hand channel. And the one thing that you can't really argue with, there's some really tenacious last-ditch tackling happening at the moment, which is showing leadership and desire on the pitch. And then there's he seems to be given a little bit more creative license as well to affect the forward play.
That's what I was trying. That's what I've been trying to dig out of you a little bit, Toby, through this, I guess, this questioning and the idea.
I got there in the end.
The idea or the concept that, we're a bit slow tonight, it's a bit late, but the idea that perhaps Granit Xhaka still isn't that good, but perhaps Granit Xhaka paired with someone like Thomas Partey, who is a bit better recycling, who's offering him a much better, much more viable partner than what Ceballos did, a more technical partner, a better stand-up defender than what El Neni did. And we often talk about partnerships. We often talk about symbiosis. And I think that basically you've got midfielders in front of Xhaka who are doing more, who are providing more running. You've got a partner for Xhaka who is providing him with more structure and maybe has a bit more of an ability to get up and down. Toby, for me,
more stress for the opposition as well. So because there's
different pieces. Yeah,
but he's moving it forward at pace, and then that's opening the game up for Xhaka.
Because there's this what I'm trying to get at, Toby, because we've said in the past, if you wanted to shut Arsenal down, you just go put fuckloads of pressure on Xhaka. Because El Neni's not going to pass his way out of it. You didn't have Arse next to him in El Neni. Ceballos slowed down, played too much, wanted too many touches. And despite everyone saying that Ceballos has this wonderful pass game, I implore you to look through all of Ceballos' games and show me a time when he passes front to back. It's very, very rare that he passes front to back. He much prefers those getting involved in the triangles with Bellerin on the side and stuff like that. And I just feel like by bringing in Thomas Partey, by bringing in someone who's been spreading those balls to the wings, who can get in front of someone, strong enough to run at someone, I just feel like there's two main things that have happened there. It's made it so defenses have to watch both of our midfielders, not one of our midfielders. And I also feel that because Partey has an inclination, initially I thought that he would sit more forward. He would be more of a front-footed number 8. And he does do it a couple of games and have a few bursts. But he does like sitting in that deeper channel. He does like kind of constructing the play and moving the ball quickly. And for me, I feel like we may have been a little bit wrong about Xhaka. Early on, we were saying, oh, he needs to be deep. He needs to be deep because he can't get turned. And he's actually a little bit further up now. And I'm wondering if what we're seeing is we've taken some of the defensive pressure off him and we're actually highlighting his best attribute a little bit, which is his left-sided channel passing, where he's knocking the ball through at pace and he's picking up wingers who are running. It's interesting you brought up the Aubameyang thing. I've said a couple of times on this podcast, I think the team looks a whole lot better balanced when he's not in the team. But that's an argument for another time, and we've struggled for goals, and I know people will jump all over me. People have been jumping all over me about my fucking Twitter things for weeks now. Toby, another player that you mentioned, and while we're talking about me getting destroyed on Twitter, people gave Pepe man of the match in our last game, in the game against Southampton, and I was adamant that I thought he was one of the worst players on the pitch. Ryan had him as one of the worst players on the pitch. I think you had him as one of the worst players on the pitch. Scunny and Manny both had him as one of the worst players on the pitch, but he scored a goal. And for our fan base, what they saw was a guy who ran around a whole lot more, which ticked their box that he ran around a whole lot more. And then they saw a guy who scored a goal, which ticked their box for someone who has contributed. And what we saw was a guy who ran down a lot of blind channels, showed really low football IQ, lost the ball 10 times. So basically, I put up...
And went walkies and lost his man completely for the one goal that we conceded.
Completely for the goal. And I got mauled on Twitter, Toby. One of the most furious Twitter maulings I've had in a long time, because I put this thing up saying, I don't understand how you've all got him for man of the match. I thought that he was awful. In saying that, in this game, Toby, I just about had Pepe for man of the match. I thought it was a mature performance. I thought that it was a better performance, even though he didn't get the goal than it was in last week. And call me crazy, but scoring goals doesn't always define you as a fantastic game for me. You can have a fucking awful game, be one of the worst players on the pitch and take your opportunity. I think the way people score players, the way people...
Well, you do love Theo Walcott still.
I love Theo, mate. Why every fucking podcast?
No. It's just no.
And then I get. You can't tell me you didn't love Theo, Toby. You can't. You love Theo. I know you did.
I still do. It's low hanging fruit. It's low hanging fruit.
Fuck
I
you,
couldn't help myself.
You're a piece of shit.
I couldn't help myself.
Toby, the point of what I was saying was, after getting this furious mauling on Twitter last week for me saying I didn't think that Pepe was particularly good. In this game, I think Pepe was, if not man of the match, I think in the top two players on the pitch, much more intelligent, used the ball very, very intelligently, didn't get dispossessed, pressed his nuts off, made clearances in his own box. Toby, is it enough now? I guess where I'm getting at with this is, if you're Mikel Arteta and you've managed to eke now a performance that was very promising, that he didn't execute particularly well, in my opinion, against Southampton, then you play him again, most likely by accident. Most likely he wouldn't have started if Saka had been starting. I'm assuming you would have had Martinelli and Saka. That was what I was pushing for. But the way football works, Toby, you take your opportunities when they come. He then goes and puts in this fantastic performance, which I think that Arteta would have seriously jacked him off for. Like in the change room afterwards, he would have gone and put his finger in his face and said, that's how you play and that's how you work. Toby, we've seen Pepe do this in FA Cup finals. We've seen Pepe do this in spits and starts. I mean, is it time to get the hand job brigade out for Pepe and pick him again next week? Or do you continue to manage him? I mean, I didn't think Martinelli was particularly good. I thought he looked underdone, was poor on the ball, despite some very, very incredibly brave, very Martinelli-esque clearances. But what do you do with Pepe now? And do you agree with me that was possibly his most intelligent performance for Arsenal?
I wouldn't be doing the hand jobs. I'd be doing the donkey slap, because I genuinely think that he was chinned in a sense, or slapped with a donkey dick, potentially after the Southampton game. And I think it's quite an interesting theory, a hypothesis that he would have been left out of this game, because I think you're right. Potentially Martinelli comes back in. Saka was only a very late scratching, so potentially he could have been chinned for going to sleep and losing his man in the Southampton game, losing the ball and running down blind alleys and opening us up to transitions. I realise certain players get more creative license, and he probably did, but he did open us up to many counters in that game. And then, his lack of pressing and work rate, which is so paramount for those wide forwards,
especially in an Arteta team. Like he
of course.
He what's the word I'm looking for? Not when you vilify something.
Reveres.
He reveres that so much in his players, that work, that press.
So and it's so important as well for taking some of the pressure off the midfield and the fullbacks and everything. It really starts the game for us and opens up us winning back the ball and getting the ball higher up the pitch. So I got a feeling maybe he wasn't starting and something happened. It's either he wasn't thinking and overthinking, and he got his opportunity at the 11th hour, which can always be great. Anyone who's played sport and, can do their own head in. Often when you just get thrown into it is where your natural ability takes over. And then obviously maybe a bit of a backlash from the Southampton game. So look, I was just hugely...
Can you just for the listeners, just for a second, Toby, just so I can get some support from my brothers in Arse, just back me up on the fact that it was a very Gervinho-y performance for Southampton. I think Arteta would have been unhappy with the amount of times that he lost the ball and we got heavily transitioned on.
Yeah. Look, I mean, my biggest beef that game was the marking. That was my biggest beef. And then as a secondary to that, it was the amount of times he lost the ball and opened us up to transition. So, I back you on it. It's not when we negative a player or we point out the bad parts of their performance doesn't mean that we don't like the player. We're just analysing the game, or it's not that we don't like the player. We want the best for that player, but often the ones you love, you get frustrated the most.
In fact, Toby, if you go back through ArseBros, you will have countless times me across the season talking about playing him into form, making sure you're using him. Me saying that I think he's our best ball striker. I actually think he's our most threatening goal scorer when he's on. It's just interesting. I think Man is going to do a podcast, I think Wednesday night UK time. He's going to do a bit of a podcast on this about how people are kind of starting to go at each other a bit more. Scunny in the house. Nice to see you, Scun. Anyway, thought it was interesting, Toby. Thought it was a really good performance from Pepe. I thought it was interesting that my favourite Pepe performance, he doesn't score a goal. In fact, he misses some opportunities. But it was the way he took those goals, the areas he popped up in, the way he pressed, the way he used the ball, the way he riffed with people. He had a bit more of a free license.
And can I just say the power? He looked like a bigger body, and I don't think he's put on any extra size, but something happened in that performance. And he wasn't tiring either. He really did put in a big shift and show his fitness and, more than anything, his fire and his desire. And I think as fans, that's what we want. You can forgive a couple of, outside of the post curly finishes that didn't quite go in because they were fractional. And then you look at the performance and you think, well, that's wonderful. If he can put a marker on that performance and then start carrying that out at least one in every 2 games, then we've got a special player on our hands. And then the squad starts looking better as well.
But this is what I've always said about Pepe, Toby. Until you see consistency from him over an extended period of time, Saka level consistency, ESR when he's come in has been consistent, Martinelli when he has been fit has been consistent, Lacazette has had periods of consistency for us, Aubameyang has had periods of consistency for us. Pepe has never, in his now coming up to, 18 months with Arsenal, he's never shown us any consistency.
Longer. I think
is it longer?
Anyway,
I thought it was a season and a half. Thought he had last season, and then he had.
We've
this
had
season.
that many fucking managers. I don't know. So
moving on, Toby.
Didn't he come? Anyway, all right. Moving on.
Well, no, it's definitely 18 months because he came in under Emery.
Well, he was under Emery's first season, wasn't it? Emery lasted a year and a half.
No, Yeah, no, you're wrong. Anyway, moving on.
Moving
on. No point fighting over a bone, Toby. I'm sure it's 18 months. Someone in the comments, is it more than 18 months? Smash it in there. Toby, on to my next player in focus. So I thought it was really interesting, this game. A lot of the time on the ArseBros, I think because we spend quite a lot of time talking to each other about football, we'll often have similar people in similar positions in our rankings, but in all different spots. So some of us had Louise for man of the match. Some of us had Xhaka for man of the match. I was the only person who had Rob Holding for man of the match. And I put up a tweet saying, this guy has been proving his detractors wrong every single week of this Premier League season. All the people who were begging for Saliba, begging for an 18, 19-year-old to come in and start against Rob Holding because he wasn't shiny and he wasn't expensive. And he seemed to be a bit of a boring option, an unathletic option.
He's slightly thinning hairline.
Yeah. He's ever working on becoming the next Steve Bold because he will surely shortly be bald. But Toby, I said on Thursday Night Live with Darren, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, I said Rob Holding will play the next England international game. He's the form centre-back in the Premier League. And I don't think that's an outlandish comment. So I'm interested.
I'd say John Stones maybe, but John Stones plays on the left, so he could be a good partner. I think John Stones plays on the left anyway. Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think in saying that, Brother Money sees football like me a lot of the time, even though we fight like cats and dogs sometimes. I think his ratings were exactly the same as mine this week, which was interesting. But Rob Holding, he's a bit of a silent assassin, isn't he? He's the quiet, understated, the almost like a hipster's choice because it's less obvious, And he's pretty much been the one consistent for this year. And he was very close to going out on loan to Newcastle, I think. So, look,
from his own mouth, Toby, he said the Newcastle deal was pretty much done.
So every time Holding, ever since he was signed, whenever he's had a run in the team, has actually kept his position and put in some amazing form. The only problem is he's had 2 injuries. We all remember the FA Cup final next to Per in a back 3 that we never thought we were going to win. I think he got injured. I think he came back into the team from injury that time and he hadn't played at all from memory. And then there was obviously the ACL, which he did against Man U and was out for a year. So every time he's done it well. And I think we're starting to have a lot more faith in this player. In a sense, the old school centre back, like nothing is passing him. His clearance, his headed clearances are phenomenal. His game reading is good. His lack of pace doesn't seem to get shown up. He loves a fight. He loves to give shit to all of the divers and the pansy, which I really enjoyed. There's a bit of old school mongrel about him.
He also likes a big game, Toby, and this is something I've noticed. Arsenal, Liverpool, he stands up to Sadio Mane. Against Man U, he stands up and that cunt fucking headed everything out. And I said to you in a message, Toby, it has been so long since we had an aerial presence at centre back. When I think of all the fucking centre backs that we've signed over the last decade, possibly more. I mean, even I was speaking to someone the other day about Colo Touré, and they were like, even Colo Touré wasn't a mass dominant header of the ball because he was quite small. He was like 5'10" or so. Colo Touré,
and he was a converted midfielder.
Yeah, so I'm going back to like Sol Campbell, the last time I think we had a big dominant centre-back, big, tall, dominant centre-back. I just think he's an unpopular choice. There's been so many people over the course of this season who have relentlessly said, oh, we need a new right centre-back. We need a new right centre-back. Mate, I'm thinking further up the pitch. I'm thinking left-back cover. I'm thinking I'd get rid of Bellerin long before I'd get rid of Holding. I just think he's an unpopular choice. He's a really good player. I would argue this, Toby. I think that Rob Holding has been our player of the season so far. Be really interested to actually tally up our ArseBros positive points because he's picked up quite a lot of. He's been one of those, like you said, silent assassins. Picked up a lot of +1s. Not always man of the match, but always just getting in there is very, very solid and very, very good. Anything more to say on the balding assassin, Toby?
Well, look, I mean, likening holding to other players, what's happening is internal solutions that are preventing our need for morning ArseBros, smoke alarm was beeping.
Toby,
now
you
I
can
can't
talk.
go back
Toby, you can talk without reading the comments, champion.
You fucking distract me. So anyway, back to
get used to it. We've only been doing this for 2 years, 3 years.
Shut the fuck up and let me finish. So internal solutions rather than external purchases. And I think certain players are starting to put their hands up. And all of a sudden, our transfer business can move to other areas. So I wouldn't say we desperately need to replace holding anymore. I wonder, even though nobody seems to like Callum Chambers, I wonder, because he's an excellent ball player on the right-hand side, I wonder if he could be the subordinate to holding as the backup, or he goes out and you get another backup to holding potentially. Okay, you've got your Xhakas who have played their way into. You're probably not going to sell him over letting Ceballos go, letting El Neni go because he doesn't do anything except hold possession. So you're starting to get an emergence of other options. So we might be able to replace Lacazette soon. And we're not saying that he's not playing well, but we're saying that he hasn't proved himself over X amount of years, so he's not going to do it now. And that's why no contract. So anyway, I know we were talking about Rob Holding, but it's just interesting that people that are less popular, because they're less headline orientating, have actually really quietly come up and been one of our top 3 players for the season.
Well, it's like people talk about Gabriel really heavily. And again, on Thursday Night Live with Darren and I've spoken a few times about how in the weeks leading up to Gabriel getting that red card, Darren and I had been saying for a couple of weeks, this boy looks like he's going to pick up some cards. This boy looks like he's going to give away some penalties and he's going to get sent off. He's a bit square. He's a bit slow on the turn. And he's very athletic, a very good ball player, a big physical specimen who's relying on that. And you saw him come into the Premier League and flourish. Coming back from the injury, he's looked very slow, very square, hasn't hit the ground running again. And it's just interesting that, the mentality of the Arsenal fans, again, is the shiny new thing, is the thing we want to talk about. And the dusty old bald cunt that we picked up from Bolton for like, was it £1 million, £2 million?
Well,
who's currently, in my opinion, Toby, one of the... Let's not fucking cook the entire chook here. You know what I'm saying? He's the best defender. I think he's the form defender in the Premier League. I'm not going to say he's the best defender in the Premier League, but I'd say this guy is currently on form in the top 6 defenders in the Premier League. But no one wants to talk about him. No one wants to give him the plaudits. He makes like 13 headed clearances, per game. He's got a higher passing percentage than Gabriel. He's got more defensive clearances than Gabriel. He's got more tackles than Gabriel. And this isn't me saying I don't like Gabriel, by the way. I really like Gabriel. I'm so excited that we've got a big, huge athletic specimen. But I really like the idea of pairing a big athletic specimen with a bit more of an old-fashioned stalwart, sit, wait, disrupt, clear. And I even think Rob Holding's passing is a little bit underrated because the longer he's gone on this season, Toby, the better his passing is. He's not an expansive passer. He's not a Mustafi. He's not a Gabriel with a left boot. I'd even say Mari is a better passer than him. Chambers is a better passer than him. But he's not going to let you down in a press. He finds a channel, he finds a pass, and he moves it on.
Yeah, and look, I think when Rob Holding first came on the scene, I think he was a decent distributor, and I think that's why he was signed in the first place. I just think his form dipped in that aspect of the game, of his game for a while.
It's definitely improving.
He's finding confidence and he's doing well. And it's not bloody rocket surgery that you get a run in a team and you improve and more aspects of your game start improving. Life isn't black and white as much as people and fans and social media people think it is. You don't decide on someone on one performance or one day and they're in or they're out. It just doesn't work like that.
And I was ecstatic about his contract extension. Toby he had 3 years left on his contract. He's now got 5 years on his contract. He's on $90K a week. That is a smart piece of business from Arsenal. Should we bring someone in? Should Saliba go away and fucking brain it and come back and displace Rob Holding because he is the better centre back or he's the more expansive centre back?
It happens.
Fine.
Yeah.
It happens. At least you got Rob Holding on reasonable wages on a long contract, and you can then on-sell him. That's called smart. That's called smart business. So
that's
for people
right.
cracking it like more stupid fucking business from Arsenal, I say to you people, eat your fucking words, motherfuckers. Eat your words.
True. And look, one thing in terms of leadership, like I don't know him in the dressing room, but he yells on the pitch, he organizes, he leads by example. I'd rather have someone like that as a leader who is quiet, who's not in the media, who sets the example on the pitch and potentially sets the culture off of it, more than a flashy, happy striker who just needs to focus on goals as their main.
We've had enough all-action defenders over the years, Toby. We've had enough Vermaelens, Mustafis, Koscielny in his early years. He got better as he went on.
Mistakes. With all, do you remember Koscielny when we fucked up against Atleti? So we absolutely fucking killed them in the first leg, and he kicked the ball in his own face.
And no one will ever forgive him for the Birmingham League Cup final fuck up with Wojciech. But let's not go into Koscielny because he is Manny's favourite player of all time. And in fact, favorite French player of all time.
And Manny loves Wenger as well, doesn't he?
Loves him. Fucking
And Özil.
Favorite people who ever played for Arsenal for Manny. Özil, Wenger. He loves Theo Walcott. Loves him. Thinks he's the best player that ever played the game. And Koscielny. Sucker les bleu, Manny. Sucker les bleu. Toby, not that I think this really needs to be touched on, but I thought it would be remiss if we didn't mention it. The form of Bernd Leno. When you talk about silencing critics, we talk about Rob Holding silencing critics. I think that Bernd Leno has done probably the single greatest job in history of keeping his shit together, rising above it all, and letting his performances do their talking on the pitch. Another fantastic save from him, another fantastic performance from him. Toby, I put up a tweet the other day saying this guy hasn't even hit his peak.
You're right. And the thing is, I don't actually ever remember him being bad or having a dip in form. Ever. So I think, let me just say a couple of things. He wasn't great coming out to crosses, and managing his own box. And maybe his distribution wasn't quite as good as we thought it was at the start. But he's never had a bad run of form. He's never really been the reason, all keepers fuck up. That's just what happens. That's cost us anything. I think the entire narrative with Bernd Leno is media driven and Martinelli driven. Sorry, Martinez driven. I don't think he ever deserved any of the criticism or even the discussion.
Toby, he was our player of the season before he gets injured.
I know. The only fucking thing that he did was get injured, and a player came in and did a good job for 10 games.
Yep.
Who we made like
and was good.
A 20
and I like
million.
I like
so
Martinez.
No.
Do you know what, Toby? I wasn't even bringing up the chicken sandwich himself, Martinez, right? I wasn't even bringing him up. I was more looking at, I was bringing him up because I was talking about Bernd Leno quieting his critics, but it was more about Bernd Leno. And it was more about, I don't think there's any Martinez there's any Martinez fucking fans out there left still banging on that he should still be our number one or not getting behind Leno. And I'm sure if Leno parries one out into the middle like he does when people rocket one at him from 2 yards in front of him, and everyone's like, oh, Martinez would have fucking knocked that over the
anyway,
top.
we're lucky to have him. He's an excellent shot stopper. And
my point of this was, Toby, sorry, I forgot what my point was. My point was that he hasn't hit his peak yet. We haven't even got the best burnt Leno yet, because we know with keepers, they peak probably 27, 28, 29. That's their real peak when they read the game really well.
Even post 30 for keepers, so that's fine.
So Den so this is Top Bins Football. So guys, go and give a follow to Top Bins Football. That's Den the Ruthless Gooner. He's got a new channel and they talk about all things football. So he gets different people on. I watched one of his things the other day. It's quite good. So get on, give him a sub. He's a good bloke. He's a Parramatta fan. Don't hold it against him. Toby, I wanted to talk about a few things. We're at 40 minutes. We always try and do this in less than an hour. We're both tired. I'm half drunk. You've got a cup of tea in front of you. Very well done, mate. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for the cup of tea and not doing your usual gambit, which is to drink like 7 beers on this podcast.
Sloppy.
Yeah. Get sloppy. But I wanted to talk to you, Toby, about the remaining outs, right? I'm not worried about the ins. I can't be asked having a conversation about Utegard. We will see what happens with him over a period of time. We did the Ozil debate. I don't want to fucking touch on the Ozil debate. Socrates is gone. Kebab Meathead is gone. All good things. We're clearing it out. It would have been lovely to get some money for some of these motherfuckers. So I'm not going to rejoice in terminated contracts. I think it's the worst result, the best result from the pile of worst results that could possibly happen. We've only licked the top of the shit rather than having to eat the entire turd. But I want to talk to you about a couple of things just quickly towards the end of this podcast, about the last things that might happen, some of the loan deals might happen, what you think, what you'd like to see. So my first one is, Toby, I've been really surprised at how many people have said, let Mustafi go to Liverpool. I've been really, really surprised because I don't believe in selling to rivals. And if you look at the Premier League and the congestion of the Premier League right now, we're not that far off Liverpool. I got kind of mauled on Twitter again, Toby, because I put up a comment saying, I bet you Mustafi plays really well at Liverpool. He's a front-to-back passer. He'll have a more structured midfield in front of him. A back-to-front passer. He'll have a more structured midfield in front of him.
I think he'll do well also.
I wouldn't. But so you're with me. I wouldn't sell to Liverpool. Like,
yeah, I mean, that I was a Mustafi fan, but I saw the qualities in him for the reason that he was purchased in the first place. The problem for us is that there's so much negativity and errors under the bridge that we can't return from that. I don't care if he goes to Liverpool and we get a little bit of money from him. I don't care. But I think he'll do a good job there and do better than...
But that's why I care, Toby, because I think Mustafi will go to Liverpool and do a good job.
But then they'll be stuck with him because they would have had to buy him.
But I don't want to sell to rivals, and we're not going to get with 6 months left on his contract, Toby. What are Liverpool going to give? I tell you how I do
it's good business for us.
Fine, I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how. Well, I will tell you how I do.
Liverpool are far better than us, so I'd say sell him.
Toby, they're currently playing Jordan Henderson at centre back. They've scored 2 fucking goals in 2021. So I'm not jumping up and down saying they're not a great team.
Won their last 2 games and played well.
Yeah. Not the point, Toby. I'm saying if you look at the fucking table, you look at how congested it is, and you look at the up and downness of the league at the moment, you don't fucking strengthen a rival, right? You don't strengthen by giving them Mustafi or by selling them Mustafi on the cheap. You strengthen him.
I don't think they are a direct rival. I think they're so much better than us.
No, you're a fucking idiot. You're not listening to the thing I'm saying. If you look at the fucking table, they are currently a direct rival. Look at the table. Look at the points. Look at the games fucking played. It's a direct rival. I don't like it. That's my opinion. It's got nothing to do with Mustafi. I quite happily, I will wave him goodbye, and I won't have any horrible Ozil dislike towards him. But you don't fucking sell to rivals, especially if they're a decent player that's going to suit their system and is going to improve them. You let them play fucking Jordan Henderson for the rest of the fucking year. I don't think it'll happen anyway. I think we'll end up terminating his contract, Toby. On to a couple of sadder
he
ones.
Could go to Liverpool anyway on a free, and we've spent the money paying him out.
I think what will end up happening is Liverpool will have to find someone regardless. We will end up holding on to Mustafi until the end of the year, at which time his contract will run out. So I'm not that interested. I'm not that interested in getting £2 million for Mustafi and giving Liverpool a leg up with terminating contracts left, right, and centre. I'd just fucking hold him or say to him, "You're not going to a rival, so if you want to play football, go play football somewhere else you can't."
Okay. All right. Well, for the right price, I'd sell him to Liverpool. And like I said, I don't think they're a direct rival. They're far better than we are. So,
well, you're an idiot because they are a direct rival because they are on the table and we're over the halfway point of the season. So, fuck you. On to some sadder ones, Toby. And I'm going to put them in kind of what I think is like least sad to most sad. Or if they even happen, and whether or not you think they'll happen. But there's three Hale End boys with their heads on the chopping block at the moment, either for loan deals or for ultimately sales deals. So starting with Reece Nelson. So Reece Nelson has had interest from West Ham. Reece Nelson has had interest from Crystal Palace. There's been multiple reports saying there are both loan deals available or permanent sale deals available. I think I was reading the other day that Crystal Palace didn't want to pay more than 15 million for him, so that was going to get taken off the table anyway. Toby, just quickly, Reece Nelson, what's his value? Do you loan him out? Is it worth investing another year in him? He's on a relatively long contract. I think he's on about £30,000 a week, so not huge wages for us. What are your thoughts?
I would keep him because I'm a real fan of these youth prospects and the ones that have come through the Hale End Academy. 15 mil though, you'd have to consider it for a guy that, isn't even making the bench at the moment. But loan would be my preference.
Loan would be your preference.
I still think there's something there.
Look, Reece Nelson, the reason why I put Reece Nelson first is Reece Nelson is the one who weirdly, I probably had the highest hopes for him a year and a half ago. He was the one who I thought was going to make it at this level. And I've got a funny feeling that he might be one of these guys who comes unstuck with physicality, not with technicality. I think you see some guys go over to Germany where it's not as dynamic. They're not as big. They're not getting battered as much. And go over there and do really quite well. I'd even be interested to see how Jordan Sancho would do in the Premier League because I think that would be a huge step up as well. I mean, we've seen big players, Timo Werners and guys like that come here and not do particularly well. But as time has gone on, I think I have looked at Reece Nelson and thought, ultimately, I don't currently see you breaking into the team as a first team player. I think you'd be a viable option off the bench. And as I've always said, Hale End or Academy boys, they have two job roles, Toby. They come in, they get 30 to 50 games for you under their belt, and they either turn into something special or you end up getting with English tax, £20 million for them, and they feed money into the economy for you to go and put that money towards an Erdegaard if at the end of the season that's possible and you want to sign him. On to the next one, Toby, which makes me a little bit sadder because this is a guy who in preseason I was saying this was his year. I had him picked for being the guy to break into the team, over 6 foot tall, dynamic, dominant, played lots of games last season for us, has fallen off a fucking precipice, and now Newcastle are very interested in Joe Willock on a permanent.
I really like Joe Willock. I like all of our kids. I would be less sad about Joe Willock than Reece Nelson.
Really?
For me, yes, because I think Joe Willock has had much more of an opportunity than Reece Nelson has. He's had a better injury run. He's certainly got a shitload of games under Emery, and he's had a fair amount under Arteta too. I just say, technically, I think Willock lacks a little bit more in his all-round game. We still don't know what he is. He's not attacking enough to be a number 10. He's not technically secure enough to be a number 8. like I said, I really like him, but out of the three, and I think I know who you're going to say next, out of the three, he would probably be the one I'd let go the most out of those three.
Willock, for me, I would love to see get a loan move off to Germany, because I don't think that he lacks the physicality. I think Willock's an 8. I think that he's more of a Thomas Partey in the sense that he's a bigger body, he recovers the ball really well, he shoots from outside the box. His inconsistency and his lack of consistency around his football IQ, like when he chooses to run, when he chooses to pass, when he chooses to shoot, that seems to be the thing that's missing, because he plays good passes. He scored a fucking screamer against Liverpool in the Cup in that stupid game. Was it like 5-4 or 5-all or whatever it was? We played against them last year. Like, he's hit some fucking crackers. You've seen him at Europa League level look really, really good as well. Granted, you've seen Reece Nelson look really good at those levels as well. But yeah, for me, if it was between sell one, loan one, I would sell Nelson, loan Willock. You're saying that you would loan Nelson, sell Willock. And I mean, that's interesting because we're both looking at different things. I also look at what the club's going to need over the years coming, and I look at how well we're stocked with Saka, Martinelli, ESR, Pepe, and those age demographics. And I do wonder how Nelson would dispossess them of their position in the team. Whereas if I look in the midfield, I'm like, okay, well, with Ceballos going back on loan, El Neni being very much a squad player, Partey, Xhaka, I would see that pathway into the team if Willock went on a loan and improved and played really well, that pathway into 8 might be a little bit easier for him. But
I'll just give you one pathway. I think Lacazette's done. I think Aubameyang will be gone within the next 2 years, and I think Martinelli will end up playing in the 9. So I think there's a pathway there. But anyway, keep going.
Why not? Sentiment agrees with me. Willock, loaned to Germany, needs to work on his technical skill as a midfielder. Why not? Sentiment, bro. We should hook up. We should hook up. not like a sexual way. I mean, we could run a train on someone. I don't know how you feel about that, but we could do it. But hit me up, bro. Hit me up. Terrible way to finish a fucking podcast. Toby. On to my final player, and the player that hurts my heart.
Don't say it.
The player that hurts my heart the most. Then I put up a tweet 6 weeks ago, I think now. I said, Mikel Arteta does not fancy Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I expect him to be out of the club in January. He hasn't gone yet. We're hearing that Leicester want a permanent move for him. Southampton are interested in a permanent move for him. The West Bromwich Albion loan deal is dead. Wolves are possibly tabling a move right now. Toby, there is no fucking way I let him go to Leicester. No fucking way that happens. It breaks my heart, Toby, but he definitely looks like he's on the way out the door. Of all of the boys I've seen come through the Hale End Academy, including Saka, including ESR, there was a time when I thought that Ainsley Maitland-Niles would become the answer for us to, a midfield destroyer, a lung-busting number 8. And we've never seen it, and it's never happened. And Toby, to an extent, I've even now got to come to the point where I'm like, if you got to sell him, but don't fucking sell him to Leicester to come back and sting us in the next couple of years. Let him go to Southampton or Wolves.
Yeah, this one breaks my heart because
right on, Scunny.
There's something, unless it's Mustafi, Scunny. This one breaks my heart because there's something about Mainsley, and my 5-year-old calls him Mainsley, by the way, now, which is even better. Power, pace, like the speed, the shoulder width, the sublime skill where he looks like football is just something that he does on the side, and he does it a bit and it's a bit of fun. He reminds me of Diaby a lot. They are just for me, the only thing with Arteta is that he thinks that perhaps he doesn't concentrate enough, which I agree. Maybe he smokes a bit too much weed. He looks like You know, he might do that. That's a
I would
joke.
say
I understand the professional
it's
footballers
training,
wouldn't do that.
I would say
You
it's
know,
training with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Toby. I would say
but
he
it's
probably doesn't put in the effort and training that Arteta wants to see.
But it must be between the ears because he always wanted to be something else than the position that was offered to him. He could have had a brilliant career as a right back. I actually think he could have pushed Bellerin all the way and usurped him if he had the minerals to do it. But I think that he thinks that he's better than that and that he isn't a defender. So, you know, his last opportunity at left back, which I don't think is really fair on him because his best games from the left was from left wing back and not as a left back. So he's playing on the wrong side and out of position. Look, this breaks my heart. I actually hope it's not true. I hope that somehow he can still remain a fringe player, play in big games still, be a good backup and just put his head down. Arteta is obviously trying to say this is make or break time and you really need to pull your fucking finger out. You know, Leicester would be interesting that they're interested in him because maybe that's saying that we've got it wrong if they're trying to purchase him. If he were to go somewhere, Southampton, I would much prefer than anyone else because, like you said, it's not a rival. But I almost don't want to think about it. I fucking love Mainsley. I don't want it to happen.
Yeah, and so do I, Toby. But I think the writing's on the wall at the moment. You've looked at Arteta's selections over the last few weeks. You know, he gave him that one run at a left back. He looked really disinterested. Look, like I know people are like, oh, he's not a left back. He he's only ever played off the left as an auxiliary midfielder in a on the left of essentially a back five coming inside. But for me, that's all about application. I looked at that and I thought maybe that was the defining moment. You know, maybe Arteta said to him, you know, go out and brain it. This is your last chance to prove to me what you've got. I've said this so many times, Toby. It can't be about his execution. He owns 2 or 3 man of the match performances for Arsenal in really big games. So he obviously likes the big game. He can get himself up for the big game. He's a really good stand-up defender. I actually think he played better for Arsenal when we were playing in a passive system as a defender because he's a better passive defender. But I can't not look at that game he played in the Europa League where he played in midfield and him and ESR just fucking dominated.
And that's what breaks my heart. That's where I got the Diaby comparison, you know? So anyway, I don't want to talk about it. It hurts my heart.
That's pretty much it, guys. We've done about an hour. I just wanted to laugh at people who thought Arsenal were going to get relegated because I said that we will never get relegated. The squad was too big. The squad was too strong. So I want to laugh at those people. I want to laugh at the Martinez lovers. I want to laugh at the Holding haters. Shout out to Russ Morgan, who's dropped in. We've got Den the Ruthless Gooner. We've got Why Not Sentiment, who's happy to run a train with me. So we'll hook that up. Why not? We've got Scunny in the room. Who else we had? Don't Waste the Tweet. Regular always in. Don't Waste the Tweet has his... Don't Waste the Tweet has his own... I'll get my fucking words out in a second. His own YouTube channel at the moment. He's doing like 5 players in focus after every game. So go check him out. He's got some good shit to say. And we will catch you after the next game. Darren's running Thursdays. I've got a baby coming, so I'm going to be doing less podcasting. So I think Darren's going to be trying to get some different guests on and stuff like that. I'm going to try jump on with him if I can. Manny's doing a podcast, I think, on Wednesday. I think his topic is he's having a bit of a dig at fans for fucking yelling at each other every time anyone thinks that a player is good and a player is bad. Scunny will be back with the Friday Arse, and Toby and I will be back with another ArseBros OG podcast as soon as we can get it happening. So, Toby, as always, thank you for joining me. You're much more fun when you're drunk, so next week maybe have a beer instead of a cup of tea.
Oh, well, that fucks my Feb fast then, doesn't it?
No, mate, you do your healthy thing. You drank enough piss to sink a fucking ship in December and in January. and in November. You got to accept we got locked down for 7 months, so all we did was smash piss.
Mate, it's getting up to 12 months. It was time to take a look
12
at
months
myself.
for everyday drinking. Yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
7 kilos heavier, and I think I'm growing tits, and now I have nipple chaff from the first fucking busy night in the bar all year. Also, go on to fucking anyone in Australia, go on to YouTube, look up Channel 7. I was on the news yesterday having a go at a council for being socialists. We'll catch you on the next ArseBros OG. Thanks for joining us in the comments. Thanks to Toby. See you guys later. Good night.
Good night.